Burnout, burnout, burnout. What's going on, everybody? It is Jon Does. This is episode 97. We are 1 week away from episode 100. That's crazy. So many episodes I've done. A lot of Photoshop for those thumbnails. That takes a lot of hard work. You know, takes like, I don't know, 25 minutes to knock those thumbnails out. Anyways, before we get started on today's episode, don't forget to check out wilddinosaur.com. It's the best place to support this channel because I need to buy new underwear and I can't afford any. So go help me out here. You guys don't want to deal with me with no underwear? It's going to get dangerous. Anyways, go check out wilddinosaur.com. There's all kinds of cool stuff. There's t-shirts, sweatshirts, tote bags, stickers, all kinds of cool stuff like that. But let's get into it today. Ryan is here, and we are going to be talking about the 1998 album El Oso by Soul Coughing. Ryan, you got some things you want to say?
John. Glad to be here, John.
I'm glad you could make it today as well. You'll be here next week too, I think, right? We got more episodes to talk about. Are you thinking you might show up to the 100th episode?
I received an invitation in the mail the other day, and Fantastic. I have been slow to get back to the post office.
Oh, it's all good.
The RSVP is coming. I've got the stamp on it and everything.
Okay, fantastic.
Just need to drop it in the box.
So we'll expect some shenanigans next week. Are you cool with doing this on Monday? Doing our 90s nostalgia on Monday, or Friday work for you?
As opposed to Wednesday.
Yeah, just because Wednesday will be a more goof around episode. There's going to be some stuff going on.
I beg your pardon.
Yeah.
We should have discussed this after. Yeah, whatever, man.
Okay.
Let's do a Monday.
We can talk about that later too if it's an issue. No worries either way. Just gotta get the 100th episode. Kick that off right. So just checking in with you, seeing if you're gonna be around or not. So we have done a bit of a dive. Well, I mean, I guess we've decided that this week we're doing Soul Coughing. Let's see. My introduction to Soul Coughing was, I think I've mentioned before, both my siblings worked at the Warehouse Records back in the day when there used to be record stores, and I think it was my brother would make me mixtapes fairly regularly, and one of the mixtapes I had this song called Circles on it, and I always really liked the song, and I started hearing it around some radio play and some other places around, really liked the song. Kind of forgot about it for a while, found the mixtape again like a decade and a half later, and was still into tapes. So I was popping that in. I think I left that in one of my cars when I got rid of one of my old cars. But yeah, Circles was a song that I hadn't heard in a long time, and then was like, oh man, this song's actually really great. The more I talked to some of my friends that are a little bit older, that kind of experienced Soul Coughing when they were new, really liked Soul Coughing a lot more than I expected to, because I'd only heard the one song and it seemed very alt rock to me, and I couldn't really figure out why some of my friends that are, into more like underground music or, various subgenres, I was having a hard time thinking, like, how are they so into soul, or why is there such admiration for Soul Coughing, even if it's not like in their playlists, they're not like listening to Soul Coughing. Almost everybody I know has had pretty positive things to say about them as a band overall. So that was my introduction to them. Where did you first hear them, Ryan?
Well, as a matter of fact, it was at the Michigan Theater in the middle of October of 1995.
Okay. Sweet.
And just a brief story about music being transmitted through other media, you know. A movie came out called Smoke, all right? And the story goes it was completed with time to spare and under budget.
Mm-hmm.
And so Paul Auster and I think it was Wayne Wang got together and in 5 days threw this movie together called Blue in the Face. Harvey Keitel was in it. Madonna was in it. RuPaul was in it.
Wow.
Roseanne was in it.
Quite
Michael
the
J.
cast.
Fox was in it. Lou Reed was. Did I say Jim Jarmusch was in it?
No,
Jim
not yet.
Jarmusch was in it. I love it when Jim Jarmusch shows up in a movie. It's all very improvised. There's kind of an overarching story involved. Harvey Keitel and Mel Gorham. But the music is just wonderful. And there's this scene where Soul Coffin is playing, and it's at some train station, and trains are coming and going, and there's this young girl, and the sun's on her face, morning sun, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. Maybe she's a little darker. Maybe she's a little heavier. But it was her birthday, and she was just glowing. So happy and delighted to be on camera. I mean, the film had professional actors, but there were some ad-libbed moments in the streets, too, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, there were, like, lens flares all over the place. And I think when they went out on the street, they had, like, an 8mm or 16mm or something. And that, to me, was just marvelous. To this day, I love that movie.
I'm looking. Giancarlo Esposito is also in it, too. He's great.
There are it's wonderful.
Yeah, I'm going to have to check this out.
It remains one of the best things I've ever seen. It's not perfect. It's very slapped together. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but that's cool too. I went out probably the next day and found the soundtrack at Encore Records. David Byrne and Selena do a duet. Spearhead and Zap Mama are on it.
Wow.
It's David Byrne's all over it. It's on the Walkabout label.
Okay.
And the Soul Coffin song is called The Brooklynites. And I didn't know what to make of it. I didn't know if it was a real band playing. To me, it sounded like hip-hop.
Uh-huh.
And I wasn't sure about anyone's ethnicity. The guy didn't sound like a white rapper, but he didn't necessarily. He sounded like a rapper, you know, kind of. But he wasn't quite rapping. That song hit me hard. Had the right beat, had the right hook, had that sick descending bass line. Drums were huge. And there were all these weird noises. You know, I'd find out later that was the sampler.
Yeah. In my research, come to find the sampler is a big part of Soul Coughing as a band.
Huge.
Yeah.
I had never heard anything quite like this, and I wanted to know more. And after another couple weeks, probably a little closer to the holidays, I picked up Ruby Broom, which at the time was the only thing that was out.
Mm-hmm.
I caught another one called Unmarked Helicopters on the X-Files soundtrack. That was really cool.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't realize they had done stuff for the X-Files. I'd love
They
that
didn't
show.
sound like anybody else, man, and they really were. They're in my top 3 90s bands, no question, and always have been. I've been listening to Soul Coughing since October of 1995.
Well, I can add you to the list.
Every minute of it.
I can add you to the list of people who have only good things to say about Soul Coughing. Which is funny because they're such a non-talked about band overall. But there's a lot of admiration from, people that listened to them at the time. I'm going to say this right now. I don't know what the former band members are doing. I think they all kind of are doing their own thing. Soul Coughing's a band I would not mind hearing something in 2023. If they were to, I'm not suggesting they have to get back together or anything like that. But if I was to hear Soul Coughing is going to put out a new record, I would be interested. I would be very interested to hear what they, considering that sampling has just become even more of a thing. And they've all, seemingly most of them have gone on to do other projects and remain relatively in the industry. It would be cool to see like what they do now.
Sebastian Steinberg plays bass for Fiona Apple, which I imagine he's got a few other gigs too. But what's his name? His name is Degliantonini.
Yeah, Mark.
We'll call him Mark.
Keyboard sampler.
Nearest I could tell, he went on to do some soundtrack work. The drummer, Yuval Gabay, doesn't have a Wikipedia entry, and I wasn't inclined to track him down. I didn't re-listen to any Soul Coughing, really, properly speaking, man. I didn't need to. However,
you failed. I'm just kidding.
I have not kept up with Soul Coughing, mostly. I had to do some homework to find out what they were currently doing. And with Mike Doty, I've got some things to say, but I still haven't heard any of his new music. These are human beings we're talking about.
Yeah.
These are human beings who got together and formed a band.
Mm-hmm.
Blood, sweat, and tears. People loved them because they were hardworking. They toured. Their shows were pretty close to the album, but energetic and funny. The songs might have been more or less the same. They'd go long occasionally. They'd nurse a groove. There would be some improvised episodes here and there. But the banter between songs was just hilarious. Mike Doty is hilarious. Mike Doty might be one of the funniest men alive.
That's a strong statement. You are talking to the wild dinosaur. I'm just kidding. I'm not that funny. No, I'm not that funny.
I did not listen to any of his new music.
Yeah.
But I did listen to a couple interviews with him, and I did some Twitter stalking, and I did a little bit of this and a little bit of that. He's brilliant. But his relationship with Soul Coughing has been complicated for the past 25 years.
I can imagine.
It goes hot and cold, kind of. It's complicated. But he wrote a couple memoirs about his earlier years. He came out swinging against his former bandmates. And to the press, too. He was born in 1970. And Soul Coughing got together 92, maybe a little before, but 92. He was 22 at the time, and as soon as he turned 21, let's back up a minute. Mike Doty's kind of a military brat.
Okay.
Traveled around a bit. Went to West Point. Not as a serviceman, but high school, I believe.
Huh. Okay.
His father was stationed there, I think. I might be butchering that part of his biography, but I think I'm about right. I'm in the ballpark. Moved around a lot. Had some discipline. Went to school for songwriting with Anita Franco. Got himself a job working the door at the knitting factory as soon as he was 21. And falls in with these other cats when he's 22. These guys are all about 10 years older than him. The rest is history. But they are a hard-working band. I mean, they encouraged taping early on, and before Ruby's Room was, published, they were playing shows and having people record them. And those early Soul Coughing sets, they're not bad. They're not bad. But they're a far cry from Circles.
Well, so I real quick, I don't know if I mentioned this, but I have this in my notes, and I thought it was an interesting fact, seeing as last week we did Beta Band. This record, El Oso, is listed at being released September 29th, 1998, which, if you remember,
Correct.
Last week, the Beta Band's 3 EPs came out on September 28th, 1998. So this was a day apart in releases, which is, I mean, all art is subjective, but to me,
I hate it when you say that.
I mean, it is, but it's funny that we didn't do this on purpose. We didn't plan doing Beta Band.
We don't do anything on purpose.
Yeah, mostly, yeah. I mean, I ate a whole cake last night on accident, so I guess
sometimes
you
need to chill with the cake.
So I guess you're right. But no, just since we are doing these back to back, I do find it a bit interesting because I think the quality of El Oso. I mean, there's so many issues and obstacles to get over in the recording process, and it depends on how you go about it too. But I do think, and it is totally unfair because this is their third studio record by this point.
third and final, my friend.
Yeah. And 3 EPs was like the culmination of the 3 EPs that they had been working on. So it is totally unfair, however.
You know what's funny though?
Yeah.
Both bands at that point were rock bands preoccupied with English dance music.
That is another big point that I was
both of those are. This is true. I kept reading about the Beta Band. I got a copy of Patty Sound for $1.99
Yes.
from the clearance bin
I saw
at
you,
Amoeba Records,
the picture you
Berkeley,
sent me was good.
California. Look, they were trying to make electronic music with the instruments they had at hand.
Yeah.
It's a classic story with English electronic acts. El Oso, I don't know if it was Mike Doty's first time leaving the country, but Mike Doty spent some time in the UK and just fell in love with the club scene and the electronic music at the time. And boy, I know how he felt. It was very lovable. He's got... They were touring with DJs. Maybe it was an electronic act. I don't know. But he got some drum and bass producer from Britain to help him out.
Oh, isn't that like
Oso.
DJ Die or something like that?
No, I want to say his name is like, Liquid, maybe? I can't remember his name. His helper on El Oso.
DJ Crust? Was it DJ Crust? I know.
Mm-mm.
Okay.
That's closer, but it's an L. Name starts with an L. It's going to come back to me. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, the dance beats, first of all, there is not a second on any of Soul Coughings' 3 records that lacks groove. Not a second. Everything kind of swings. But even back on Ruby Room, there was just a really dancey track near the end called Mr. Bitterness. It even had like club keyboard stabs with it.
Oh, nice.
And I thought it was funny at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then El Oso came out. At that time, believe it or not, I was working at Warehouse Records in Ann Arbor, Michigan, at the corner of Southview and Church Street.
Forgive me, I have to let the cat out of my room real quick. I forgot he was in there. Keep telling your story though. I can hear it.
So, well, there you have it. They were, I think, as a group, fascinated with club music, hip hop, anything with the beat, really.
Sorry, I'm back.
Yeah.
Those cats. Sometimes they just sneak into my room and I forget that they're in here.
But the guy had a monster rhythm section, is the thing. Just a monster rhythm section. One of the best out there. And they listened, man, and they adapted, and they came up with some tight drum and bass. And then they got a drum and bass producer, and boom, El Oso.
Well, that was a big thing that I wanted to talk about with this. Again, going back to my comparisons to last week, I had made the statement about Beta Band and cringy white boy rap. And I think you were the one. It was either you or my friend Jay, because I mentioned we were going to talk about soul coughing, which Jay actually I think has some stories about Mike. Jay lived in worked at a record store in Hawaii for like 10 years. So not 10 years, but he worked at a record store in Hawaii for a long time, and there was like, it was a small community there, and so I guess there was some interaction, or somebody that he knows Mike or something like that. I don't know. Jay would be an interesting person to share some of these stories, but the response that I got from it, and it might have been Jay, it might have been you. I forgive me, I can't quite remember. Was I'd made the white boy rap statement, and then there was like, oh, well, you're getting into soul coughing, so there's plenty of that there. And I agree that there is white boy rapping to a degree. However, I think the presentation of it is a lot more solid for me. It works better. Mike's lyrics, his vocals come with an air of confidence to them, where there's a large enunciation on certain parts of the phrase that I think are very rhythmic, that work very well. And I don't necessarily put them in the same category of white boy rap. The Beta Band stuff was very like mixtapey. I'm maybe not explaining this.
The guy wasn't even rapping in English.
Sure. It just.
I think he was making fun of French people. I don't know. Probably.
Well, there's a little bit, because the second, yeah, I guess just on 3 EPs. The difference I feel with how it's presented in Soul Coughing is, first of all, it's completely different. Not just like kind of out of nowhere white boy rap. Oh, JP's here. I loved Soul Coughing back in the day, and we'll have to give them a fresh listen. Yeah.
All of their records, JP. Give all of their records, all of your listens. Go around and listen to that shit for 3 weeks straight. Come back and tell us how you feel.
I actually haven't re-listened to the other records since we've been doing this El Oso this week. But getting back to my like rapping thing, parts of it that, well, the other big thing that works for me really well with this, and I'm kind of digging myself a hole here by calling it white boy rap, but the fact,
I don't like it, man. I don't like it.
I will retract the statement white boy rap in terms of soul coughing. How's that?
I think it's a bad term.
No, sure.
I think it's a bad term. But I think with respect to Doty, I'll say this. In one of his interviews, he talks about learning Ableton.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Learning Ableton to make trap tracks. And he's talking about these guys he's working with.
Yeah.
Who can rap. He doesn't consider what he does rapping. These cats he's working with, apparently, are freestylists. That's what he considers rapping, at least in that interview.
I do think that his
not that you should listen to him,
yeah,
because if you did, he thinks, depending on, oh boy, what year we're talking about, he's got again, their relationship is complicated. His relationship to that band in the past is complicated.
Sure.
And he either he hates it sometimes, and the next thing you know, he's like covering Ruby Vroom with other musicians.
Yeah.
And trying to make it sound not like Ruby Vroom, I guess. I didn't listen to it because it's all kind of messed up, and the guy seems so brilliant. I'd love to get into his new music, but the fact is, I've been listening to Soul Coughings for 25 years. Sorry I didn't keep up with every damn thing that happened with the band. I mean, the better bands do split up. They split up. I thought that was the end of it. There's more. There's so much more.
Well, I guess there's Mike is a good songwriter. I think he's a really good songwriter. And
terrific.
And
terrific.
And the way he utilizes that into a rhythmic way of producing his vocals, I will retract the white boy rap statement again regarding Soul Coughing. It was comparison. I'm doing the comparison because of last week and how I felt about Beta Band, and I still stand by that statement regarding Beta Band. However,
here is a what?
Well, I was just gonna say the thing that works for me in lieu of his great songwriting is the fact that he incorporates a lot of electronic stuff, like this. What is it? Blame. The track Blame, it's right after Circles. That's a straight breakbeat right there. And like jazz bass
all over the place.
Yeah, and jazz bass too. And I had seen something that Mike was, or I don't know if it was Mike, but somebody had referred to themselves as slacker jazz. And that song right there, Blame, was like, that to me is the epitome of that statement. Slacker jazz. It's just like breakbeat samples. I mean, I don't know if they were samples or if it was the drummer.
No, they're playing that, dude.
Okay.
That is what I'm saying. The rhythm section is... Yeah.
And it's great. Like that, the jazz bass to that is, it just works so well. I don't know.
Sebastian Steinberg played an upright for...
You can hear it.
The Soul Coughing shows I watched. Now, I think I caught some electric bass here and there over the years. But, yeah. Nice mix of sounds.
And
for sure.
I think you can hear that stand-up jazz
beats,
in
all of that. All of that is recreated on stage effortlessly.
Well, they gotta get back together then.
that is unlikely.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, one label that got thrown on Soul Coughing repeatedly, and Mike Doty, I couldn't figure this out at the time, and it's still perplexing. He really bristled at being called a beatnik. The term beatnik got thrown around a lot. The original white boy rapping, as he would say. And he hated it. But I mean, man, there are, take my word for it, there's a lot of God talk throughout Soul Coughing's discography. I noticed that right off the bat. Well, that is a very beat thing. The very term beat. Beatific. You know, it's, moreover, you're using a stream of consciousness, ramblings, slam poetry to get your point across. I mean, if the sandals and beret fit, wear them, I say.
Sure.
I didn't think there was anything bad about it. I thought one of the coolest things about that band was that he was kind of like a beatnik. I felt the same about Morphine. back in the day. That bugged them.
Well,
unfairly,
because they're smelly hippies.
Proto-smelly hippies.
I'm just kidding. Well, that was also just to kind of like get back into just to discuss a little bit of the time frame too, is like the 90s, there was a lot of this like 60s revivalist stuff going on. Like, I mean, towards the end of the 90s, you get like revival of Woodstock, and you get there was a lot of I think we mentioned before with Beta Band, there was a lot of like songwriting going on, like the not the Byrds so much, but there was some songwriting styles that were happening in the 90s. There was fashion that was happening in the 90s. There was a lot of things that were like reminiscent of like the 60s and 70s, and like the whole like Summer of Love thing too. And the idea of the revivalist beatnik crowd, I think, was the first time I started hearing about that was the late 90s. I think I was like, who's Allen Ginsberg? Who is this guy? What's a Merry Prankster? These things where I was just kind of learning about what that was. And I think I'm basing a lot of this on my siblings are a couple years older than me. And so they were in the midst of some of that stuff going on. Like, I learned more, I think, about, 60s and 70s music than, I mean, I've done my own deep dive into various eras and subgenres and stuff like that. But that's when I started to learn about these terms and like beatnik and stuff like that. So I think it's maybe a little unfair for them with comes from the hindsight of being able to, we're in 2023 now. I don't know if you're aware, but we've had a lot of time.
I need to be reminded occasionally.
We have gone through a lot of trends. Like when I was in high school, which was in the earlier 2000s, there was definitely a little bit of a lot of the kids my age were wearing like new metal and surfer Billabong crap, and I was more in like the bootcut jean. I guess that was maybe a little bit later. It was more like senior year and my early college years. But we go through these trends of things in the 60s are popular, and then the 70s they're not popular, and then the 80s they're maybe like cliche or whatever, and then the early 90s happen, and all of a sudden it's like this stuff's cool again. So we go through these cycles.
Well, to be fair, somewhere around 92-ish, I think it was the Gap.
Mm-hmm.
Acquired the rights to a series of Jack Kerouac images. They did some ads featuring Kerouac and chinos.
Hell yeah. I'm sure that's exactly what he wanted in life.
Well,
to be a Gap model. Jack Kerouac, Gap model.
Jack Kerouac did a lot worse while he was alive than posed for some Gap ads. They were just outtakes from some session, if I've got this right. The point being, I caught wind of that, and the spelling of his last name seemed peculiar to me, and it just started jumping out, and I'd see it places, and then I just saw his books, there on a shelf, and I'm like, all right, let's go. Let's go. I think I read the Dharma Bums first. There's some unintended consequences of advertising, maybe. I mean, they were trying to sell me pants, but I wound up buying the books instead.
Hey, you know what? That's maybe the better go.
It was cool. I was
Better
totally marketed to. Listen, you have to understand. I was like 15 years old, so, and I was aware of counterculture. I was aware of a number of countercultural traditions. I wanted to know more, for sure. All the same, I was susceptible to mainstream advertising, at least its influence indirectly. I was grateful. But how anyone could be like fed up with beatniks, sick of hearing about this crap, you know, that was utterly beyond me. And it, you know, in retrospect, made sense that so many adults were rolling their eyes, you know?
Yeah.
Remember my mom asked me one time, do you read anyone who's not a junkie pederast anymore?
And was your response Grant Morrison?
My response at the time was, that's not all they wrote.
Yeah.
And I don't think I should have had a response to that. I don't think I have a response to that now. I think we've talked about this before, you know, when people get hurt making art.
Mm-hmm.
That's no joke. And art's no excuse, right? And yeah.
There's a difference between pain creating good art and looking for pain to make great art. And those aren't always the same thing. A lot of times they're not.
I found Soul Coughing endearing because, dude, I mean, the name is Soul Coughing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
See, I understood Mike Doty wasn't trying that hard to be much of a rapper. I knew enough about rap at the time to make the distinction. I thought Beck did cringier white boy rap than Mike Doty. In point of fact, Mike Doty tried in his own minimalist way, and the band underplayed. All of them underplayed. He could sing 3 notes for a song. For sure. He could do it. It wasn't all monotone.
Yeah.
I'm exaggerating somewhat, but he could do a few tricks. And he remains such a good writer. Such a good writer, Jon B. And I don't want to look too much into any of this. But one of the interviews with him I saw was from a guy from a songwriting channel. He was just talking about his regimen. He keeps a dream journal, which is pretty beatnik. He keeps his dream journal on a typewriter, also beatnik.
Hippie.
And then he types out his dailies before bedtime on an Apple IIe. Also beatnik.
Yeah. I think George R. R. Martin does that too. I'm sure there's a lot of writers that do similar kinds of things, but these days
he's doing the work, and I'm sure whatever he's writing now is as brilliant as what he wrote in Soul Coughing. The difference is And he's made a big deal of this, and it's all public information, but all of that writing in Soul Coughing was on drugs. Spoilers.
Don't do drugs, kids.
Grade A+ drug writing from Mike Doty. How beatnik is that?
Yeah, again, I do think he's a really good songwriter, and I did the disservice of bringing up the white boy rap thing because I don't necessarily think he's a rapper. I don't put that on him at all. I think he is in.
He's kind of rapping, but it's
kind of, but he's an influence to other stuff around him too, and there's a lot of electronic stuff.
People making music. Look, past a certain point, rap made an undeniable impact in the mainstream.
What?
And
really?
And eventually, more and more music was going to reflect that.
Yeah, for sure.
What Mike Doty had going for him was, I dare say, literary genius. And hard work.
Yeah.
And drugs. Lots of drugs. Lots of drugs.
Don't do drugs, kids.
Some bad drugs. Some bad drugs.
Yeah.
But, I don't want to get... Don't do drugs, kids.
Don't do drugs.
Anyway, around 98.
I'm going to make a "Don't do drugs" graphic for this show specifically. Anytime we
don't
bring
do
up
drugs,
I'm just going to pop up
in 1998 in Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
I know for a fact there were some ecstasy tablets going around, and people were ingesting these ecstasy tablets and having a really good time.
Pre-fentanyl days. Yeah.
No, so but that's just it. I mean, you can't do any. Don't panic if it's organic, kids. Don't panic if it's organic.
Don't do drugs.
We took, excuse me, this E that was consumed. People would refer to the high as rolling, which is the name of the first song on El Oso.
Mm-hmm.
There are just drug references throughout. There's, oh God, $300.
Yeah.
$300. Lifting me up like a garage door.
That was...
You can feel it when the drugs start coming on.
That was something I had read a little bit about. That track apparently was based on a Chris Rock joke that he recorded into his sampler. And was like, oh, I'll go back and listen to that. And then ended up writing the whole song around this Chris Rock joke thing. And I think it's even... I think they said it was backwards masked in the track as well. It might be. I forgive me.
You just wanted to know the punchline.
So we're about 10 minutes from 7.
Yeah.
So we should start closing this down a little bit. So you haven't done like a fresh re-listen.
No, but I did listen. I watched some live shows.
Okay.
That's what I did. See, Soul Coughing, like every other smart band at the time, was encouraging its fan base to record and distribute its performances, which is, I think, in part why people love them so much. So you can see with your own eyes them just nail their hits, one after the other, just banging them out. And I have three. I have fully retractable. I have fully retractable, Pensacola, and $300 downloaded onto my walking playlist, my high energy walking playlist. I listen, and that's from the last album. I mean, I've never stopped listening to Soul Coughing, man.
Can I ask you a question about because I did not go, like I said, I didn't go back and listen to the other records.
Yeah.
I only listened to this record this last week. There is a thing that I noticed throughout the whole record that if this was on a different album by a different band would probably get torn apart, because it did. There is a snare hit, the tinny, dare I even say like reggae kind of snare hit.
You're talking about back up around. You're talking about Blame, aren't you? Or Misinformed? Misinformed.
It's in almost every track on El Oso. It's just a very tinny dunk dunk, and you would hear it in like pop reggae a little bit. The album I was referring to that it did end up on, that sound. I can't believe I'm bringing this up right now. Saint Anger, the Metallica album that everybody hated, and that was one of the things that they hated about that, was that very dunk dunk snare sound.
I'm pretty sure that's a studio effect. Yeah,
probably. Yeah,
they used them extensively.
I don't dislike that sound in a snare. I think it can work well. Saint Anger aside, because that. I'm not a Metallica. Metallica is like 2 good records, and that's their first 2 or 3, whatever. It's a whole nother conversation. But I at first, when I first threw this on for the first time, and I listened to Rolling, it's right there. It's present right in the beginning. Donk, donk. And I kind of had a minute of like, that's funny. Again, because hindsight, so many records have used this kind of sound in not good ways. And I kind of laughed a little bit and then was like, wait a minute, this is literally on like the whole record, this sound. And I think it works well in context to, Soul Coughing and what they were doing with the blending of jazz and electronic music and like, rock and stuff like that.
Well,
but does
their
that
discography?
Yeah.
What's that?
The question I had for you was like, is that something that's reused that you remember on previous records too? Because it was very prevalent on this one. Okay.
It comes and goes on this one.
Yeah.
But it's not. No. That would have been production decisions. I believe El Oso had multiple producers. It was recorded in like 3 different places or something.
Okay.
But that was a production choice. Probably has to do with miking the drums and the way they got their rhythm takes.
Yeah.
But see, their whole discography is like a crescendo. It starts out very sparse and natural, and then with each record gets denser, more produced. The production traces become more present, right? Not so naturalistic. And yeah, by the time El Oso, I think some of the sounds are rather affected poorly, and that includes maybe his voice. But as you say, it's just kind of consistent throughout, and you really come to peace with it, I think. Great band. I have to say this. One thing I really loved about Soul Coughing in the early days was, well, for Christmas of 96, I got a guitar, right? And I noticed in Soul Coughing songs that the guitar parts were kind of easy and the bass lines didn't really go to, the bass lines were cool and involved, but obviously they were holding down a harmonic center and not going all over the neck.
Yeah.
I don't want to say any of this is jammy, but it's very groove based. All of it. And I tried emulating. He was one of the guitarists I was listening to that was kind of in rotation that I was trying to emulate, you know, and I would try fumblingly in my own stupid, stubborn way to like emulate a Soul Coughing song on just on guitar. I wasn't interested in singing like him. But the guitaring, not the greatest guitarist, but he could make a song out of anything in that band. I know he practiced his bass now. I know he plays keys. I dare say he's a proper instrumentalist. Dude's a badass. But back in the day, oh, dude, and I never knew it. His guitar always sounded kind of Fendery to me, but I couldn't place it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a Coronado. It's like the Fender 335.
Oh, okay.
Big ass green Coronado.
I've seen pictures of him holding that. I actually thought it was a 335 just at glance, or maybe like a Gretsch or something. Not a Gretsch, but you know.
But like for a while, man, he didn't have many riffs, and so like part of the genius of Soul Coughing as a band was their ability to arrange these basic components, all right, into a relatively engaging song. I mean, when they start going along, it's hit or miss, okay? But when Soul Coughing is coming in at under 3 minutes, it's hot.
Mm-hmm.
Hot. They're killing it. Concise, you know, simplistic, almost punk rock. They came out of the Knitting Factory. You know, Antonini.
Mark?
Antonini. I'm going to just butcher it. Mark. I give up. Mark. You know, he and Mike Doty performed for John Zorn at the Knitting Factory. As a matter of fact, they were on, it's one of his game pieces. It's not the best John Zorn out there, but they were in that scene. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So that they would do anything on what pissed Doty off about being called beatnik or whatever. Anything, comparing that band to anything. You consider the environment they came out of, man, and they would resent any comparison to anything.
Oh, I'm sure. It's sometimes hard to take that.
They went to a hot spot of innovation, pretension, the worst of all of it, you know, and the best of all of it. And I have to admit, one thing that I so loved about Soul Coughing was they were from New York, and here I am now in the shadow of San Francisco, right? But as a kid, I romanticized New York. I have spent some time in New York, and I loved things from New York. Not all things, but if they were from New York, they got a couple extra points. And I knew nothing at the time. You know, I knew the Knitting Factory was famous.
So you're a fan of Marion Barry then? Oh, sorry, bands.
The thing is, they came out of. They looked past a lot of scrutiny, I'm sure. They got to play in as best as they could together as a unit. I mean, I think that band is greater than any one of its components. Mike Doty is the mouthpiece, and Mike Doty is the one to go and tell the tales, you know. But those other guys are just so important. And what that guy was doing with the sampler, what Mark was doing with the sampler and his keyboards, it was mysterious at first. before I could really study the band and sort of saw the similarities between the releases and sort of, figured stuff out. It was so mysterious how any of that was hanging together. What precisely that sampler was doing in there. How was he doing that? It's remarkable how good they sounded live with that going on, from back in the day. That was an upright bass, sampler, drum kit, and hollow-bodied guitar with Mike Doty on the mic, and they sounded great. I mean, sounded great, and they played well.
Well, I have two questions to ask you before we get out of here. First question is, in terms of El Oso, do you have any favorite tracks?
Yeah, well, $300, Pensacola. $300, Pensacola, and Fully Retractable.
Okay.
I think that's it. There might be some more. I mean, El Oso's got some bangers.
I didn't. Let's see. I was looking this up, and I guess there was some other tracks that I didn't hear that were released on like Japanese releases or other things.
They did that.
The Incumbent, 212, and Rare Starball are three tracks that I didn't listen to because I listened to this off Spotify, and they have. So far, I've not found The Science is the last track on Spotify on that one. So I did miss out on those last three tracks. And I ultimately, I will say, I think out of all of these 90s nostalgia episodes that we've done so far, this is the one full record I would listen to again. I was actually doing some Photoshop earlier, not the thumbnail, I was just working on some other projects, and was listening to this, and I found this really good to like do work to. I thought it was great. There's enough of a flow where you get like Circles is my introduction to them, and still one of my favorite songs, but like after Circles, which is, it's not a slow song, but it's a more relaxed song, and then Blame is like, you start off with this break beat and these like stand up bass like walkie lines, and then St. Louis is Listening was also one that stood out to me as well. So yeah, you were gonna say something.
Oh,
no worries.
Matter.
No worries.
I would.
Yeah.
I would listen. I would listen to all of them, man. Irresistible Bliss is probably my favorite.
Okay.
But Ruby Vroom has grown. First of all, I like Ruby Vroom just fine when it. There's a song on there called Down to This, I believe. The title is, Down to This. You get the ankles and I'll get the wrist. You get the ankles, I'll get the wrist.
So that I guess was my second question, is out of their 3 full-length studio records, which one do you recommend? I mean, you're recommending all of them. I
recommend listening to all 3 in order. It is a crescendo.
Okay.
There is a progression.
Okay.
And it comes to an end. You know what? The reason I don't want to see Soul Coughing in 2023.
Because they did it already?
They're done.
They did what they needed to do.
And it's over. And there they are. And they're perfect. You got 3. And it makes perfect sense. Just listening to them all in a row. Each has its own ebb and flow. These records all are very carefully arranged. There are tempo shifts. There's casual cursing. They love talk. There's a lot of God talk, but there's a lot of travel talk too.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of drug talk. There are lullabies. Circles is sing-songy and it's sweet in its way, but he could get downright tender. Mike Doty on whatever drugs, whatever wonderful drugs he might have been on.
Don't do drugs, kids.
Don't do drugs, kids. Like an angel. Sang like an angel, I dare say.
Well, yeah, I think
True Dreams of Wichita and Lazy Bones
there's a lot
two
of
the most
humanity
beautiful songs I can think of from the 90s.
Oh.
True Dreams of Wichita and Lazy Bones. Beautiful songs. Beautiful.
Oh, well.
And Mike Doty's out there in the here and now, perhaps, saying he hates them, or it could have been better. These records were perfect. I mean, the artist is not always aware of what their best work is. And I'd hate to think all of Mike Doty's best work is behind him. But God damn, forgive me. Gosh darn, I hope he comes to peace with his back catalog one day.
Yeah, it's not always an easy thing. And to me, once you release something, it's really not yours anymore. You know, once it's out there to the public and you get to the point that a band like Soul Coughing was at, where they were touring constantly, and those songs mean so much to different people for different reasons than what you wrote them for, and so it's sometimes hard to reconcile that, how you relate to some art. I mean, I haven't toured or anything to the extent of that band, but I put out a lot of art, and sometimes I look at it and I'm like, that was garbage. And, there's people that are like, that's my favorite song or that's my favorite Photoshop of yours or things like that. And I'm like, I could have spent another hour cleaning stuff up, but hey, you learn to, well, I mean, you don't always learn, but, you do have to take that into consideration too. Is I do think that the moment that whatever art it is that you're working on or putting a lot of heart and effort into, the second it's out there, it's not yours anymore. It's laid claim to literally everybody else. So again, that can be a difficult thing to come to terms with, I guess. So I'm going to listen to these 3 records probably. I might not get to them this week because there's going to be a shorter gap between these episodes. There was a long gap between last episode because last week was on Monday. This week's on Wednesday like we normally do. Next week is going to probably be Monday again, as long as Ryan's willing, because we got our 100th episode coming up on Wednesday. Is there anything you want to say before we wrap up here, Ryan, about Soul Coughing?
Going back and seeing those live shows, I probably would have loved them. I was always current with their work, and they went out there and they played their set list. Spot on. There's some cool stuff on the internet. I loved revisiting the band like from that angle. That was very cool. So I'm not interested in hearing Mike Doty's music, but I would like to read his first memoir was called The Book of Drugs, I believe. And I've got some drug stories of my own from the 90s, but I'll entertain his. I wouldn't do that for just anybody.
Apparently James Cameron has drug stories as well.
Those James Cameron drug stories are fantastic.
They were pretty great.
Fantastic.
Talk about a hippie.
John, my top 3 favorite 90s bands, no exceptions, ever. It's been this way for a long time. John Spencer Blues Explosion, Morphine, Soul Coughing. All
right.
I was delighted you picked this, and it's been fun talking about it. I would encourage you and anyone wanting to revisit, reacquaint. Those live shows are good, but not essential. I think the albums are, as I think the word perfect got thrown around. Yeah, I'll stand by that.
Well, I'll be doing a visit on these 2 earlier records that I'm not really familiar with.
They're a master class in arranging. You know, they are a master class in making the most out of next to nothing musically, and I say that with the highest praise. All of these guys, they knew a lot about music by way of listening and by way of practicing, and they just they kept it simple and tightly arranged. Masterclass in minimalist composition. Any of them.
Well, I'm kind of in an arrangement kind of phase of my
musical
journey.
That's
so
what I'm saying.
Yeah. I might have to make Pat listen to these as well too. Although he hates music, so I kid. Well, let's end this episode, but I also want to give up the gauntlet here. I guess I don't think the right term that I'm looking for. I want to let people know what we're going to be talking about next week. Just so people can get excited and maybe, be here for the show next week. We currently have 2 more of these planned for now. And the next one that we want to do is, we're going to be talking about some Stone Roses. So yeah, we'll be here next week talking about Stone Roses. Ryan, is there anything you want to let people know before we get going?
Those 3 Soul Coughing records are there waiting for you. For you. Go and listen to them. Dwell on them. He tries to tell stories. He often succeeds in evoking a mood. And he's quite funny. There's substance there. And the band just kicks ass. The band is badass.
Well, you heard it. You heard it here.
Go out and get it.
Go listen to Soul Coughing.
And don't do drugs, kids.
If you don't listen to Soul Coughing, Ryan will come to your house and dose your dinner with LSD.
Kids, you want to be good beatniks and listen to your Soul Coughing with organic drugs.
Read your Jack Kerouac while listening to Soul Coughing is what Ryan's trying to say. Go read On the Road, and in the background just throw on El Oso or any of them. If you don't, Ryan will come to your house.
I don't plan on going to anyone's house.
I know. All right. Well, I appreciate you being here tonight, Ryan.
It was fun.
We'll be here again next Monday for 90s Nostalgia, and then Wednesday is the 100th episode. So we're going to party like it's 2099. And last question for Ryan is, what do you think about the state of DC? I'm totally kidding. Let's not even go there. But if you want to come back and talk about that sometime, you're more than welcome. Because I'm obligated to talk about it again at some point. Maybe Friday or Monday. Because, oh my God. But anyways.
That sounds like 100th anniversary.
Do you want to dump some shit on DC on Wednesday next week? You're more than welcome to. All right, Ryan. Let's call this a night.
Peace out, man.
All right, I'll talk to you later.
Later on.
Bye. All right, so that was Ryan, and I am John. This is Jon Does. This was episode 97. This is coming together. This is coming together. It's been a while since I've had anybody comment on any of the quality of stuff. I was watching some old episodes, and there was some more people in the chats, the live chats. And I'd like to boost that up a little bit more. So give me some feedback. Let me know what you guys are into, what you're not into. I'm really digging these 90s nostalgia episodes. Ryan's really digging them. We'll talk about more stuff if we get to, our season 2 of 90s nostalgia. We'll probably cover more genre, I guess, is what I'll say about that. And there are conversations starting regarding that. So, anyways, I'm gonna get out of here. I'm hungry. I need to go eat something. It's like 7:20-ish now. But let me know what you guys think about this episode and anything you guys want to hear me talk about. If you have suggestions for other 90s nostalgia episodes or anything like that, drop them in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe and do all that stuff. Go check out wilddinosaur.com. It's the best place to support the channel. If you want to see me do more stuff, you gotta help me out. Buy some merchandise, rock that around, help me buy some underwear, like I said. The last thing here is don't forget to check the link in the description. There is the link in the description. There's a link in the description to donate to Planned Parenthood. It's something I'm really big on, and I think a lot of people should support Planned Parenthood because they're a great organization and they do a lot of great healthcare and family planning and stuff like that in the U.S. So consider donating to Planned Parenthood. It's for a good cause. It's for healthcare, which not everybody in the U.S. gets. All right, well, that's going to be it for me today. I will be back on Friday. I think Pat said he's going to be here on Friday. I don't remember. Forgive me. I'll have to check in with him here in a little bit. Yeah, and we'll probably talk about some DC stuff since we had the big announcement on Tuesday. I know I talked about them getting ready to do the announcement yesterday, and they did. And so we'll talk about some of that stuff coming up in the next couple days. Friday, Monday, maybe Wednesday a little bit. So anyways, I hope you guys have a good Thursday, and I'll see you back here on Friday. So yeah, have a good one. Peace out.